All right, confirmands. It is Sunday, and our lesson for this coming week is the parable of the Good Samaritan from Luke chapter 10. Again, I'm going to read it. I want you to do the same, and your options for additional things to do are use lesson 22 and act it out with your family, and your double option is to act it out with your family and record it. All right. So here is um, Luke chapter 10, verse 25 through 37. Behold, the lawyer stood up and put him to the test, saying, Teacher, what shall I do to inherit eternal life? He said to him, What is written in the law? How do you read it? And he answered, Well, you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your strength, and with all your mind, and your neighbor as yourself. And he said to him, You have answered correctly. Do this, and you will live. But he, the lawyer, desiring to justify himself, said to Jesus, And who is my neighbor? And Jesus replied, A man was going down from Jerusalem to Jericho, and he fell among robbers, who stripped him and beat him and departed, leaving him half dead. Now by chance a priest was going down that road, and when he saw him, he passed by the other side. So likewise a Levite, when he came to that place, saw him, passed by the other side. But a Samaritan, as he journeyed, came to where he was, and when he saw him, he had compassion. He went to him and bound his wounds, pouring on him oil and wine. Then he sat him on his own animal, and brought him to an inn, and took care of him. The next day he took about 200 denarii and gave them to the innkeeper, saying, Take care of him, and whatever more you spend, I will repay you when I come back. Which of these three do you think proved to be a neighbor to the man who fell among the robbers? The lawyer said, The one who showed him mercy. And Jesus said to him, You go and do likewise. So a couple of things here. You have this parable that Jesus is talking or is telling to a lawyer. Now, this isn't like a lawyer like Ken Nunn or something like that you would see advertised for someone, hurt here. This would be someone who would be an expert of Jewish law. And so he would have read all of the writings of Moses and known all about the ins and the outs and the things that he was supposed to do to keep clean, the types of food that he could eat or couldn't eat. Um, what do you do if you borrow your neighbor's donkey and the donkey breaks its leg? How are you supposed to repay your neighbor? Right. So the law encompasses not just the Ten Commandments, but it also encompasses all the writings of Moses. So this lawyer, not Ken Nunn, would have known, been an expert of all that. So he would have been Jewish. The law, the moral law, the Ten Commandments, can be summed up in the way that the lawyer did. Love the Lord your God and love your neighbor as yourself. It's that relationship that you have with God and at the same time that you have with the people around you. Well, wanting to justify himself, basically wanted to make himself sound like he really knew what he was talking about and was truly an expert of the law, asked Jesus, So who's my neighbor? Well, for an Israelite, you would think that a neighbor would be a fellow Israelite. And so when Jesus tells this parable, the neighbor isn't the person who this lawyer would have thought. The priest, the Levite, those would have been Israelites who should have been the people who are the ones who are going to care for someone else. But these two people, priests and Levites, would be people who would be working in the temple. And as a lawyer would know, that if a priest or Levite would get blood on themselves, they would be ritualistically unclean, and they wouldn't be able to work in the temple and fulfill their duty. So when they see a man bloodied and beaten, they stay away from him. They walk around him, and they don't do what the law of Moses and the law of the Lord really commands, which is love your neighbor. Instead, they're concerned with being clean. And then an unlikely figure, a Samaritan, comes by. Now, Jews did not necessarily get along with Samaritans all that well. They considered them to be, they were kind of like the distant cousins. Better yet, if you've ever watched, National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation, the Samaritans were like Cousin Eddie. Okay, no one really liked them. They were the outcasts. They did things a different way. They worshipped. They didn't worship God. They worshipped. They kind of had some other things going on with their worship as well. And so, the Jews never really considered them to be part of other people. They were Samaritans. They were outcasts. And yet, it's the Samaritan in the story that Jesus tells that is the one who is fulfilling the law. He is cleaning the wounded person. He's not afraid to get dirty, bloody, and covered in the soil and the stain from the person who is beaten on the side of the road. He doesn't spare any expense in making sure that this person is cared for. He puts him up and says, "Look, when I come back, if you've had to spend anything more, I will pay it out of my own money." Right? So when the end of the story comes, and Jesus asks the lawyer, "Who was it that's the neighbor?" The lawyer actually answers right. It says, "The one who did mercy." And as a challenge to the lawyer, Jesus says to the lawyer, maybe you shouldn't be so worried about the ritual cleanliness, but be concerned with mercy. So my question for you as we left was, who is Jesus in this parable? We'll talk about that when we gather together on Sunday. Well, blessings. Enjoy your time reading and thinking, and hopefully making some fun videos with your families looking at the parable of the Good Samaritan. Blessings, and we'll see you then.